It is 12 noon, lunch hour. Welcome back into Three Man Front on this Friday. Pat, Conrad, Molly, we'll take you home until 2 o'clock. Lange will be back with us on Monday. He's calling some high school basketball championships today in the Alabama Super 7. Hope everyone's having a good start to your weekend. We're going to talk to Blake Lovell coming up from Southeastern 16 as the final regular season games in the SEC. 8 games tomorrow. We'll start at 11 a.m. We'll get Blake's thoughts on that and, of course, the upcoming SEC tournament in his backyard in Nashville.
Well, with flu season hanging around and pollen season coming, make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles that cause allergy and virus. It's 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. So go and find a dealer near you at Trane.com.
He joins us every Friday on the program. Talk a little SEC basketball. Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16 joins us now on Three Man Front. Blake, I hope you're well.
Yeah, doing well, guys. Good to talk to you as always.
All right, so let's get right to it. What are you looking for tomorrow? Because I know some hay is already in the barn with some teams, like maybe Alabama, but what are you looking for tomorrow in regards to maybe those teams that need a little work to be done?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, not every game. I think there's a couple, probably South Carolina and Ole Miss, Georgia, Mississippi State, probably don't have really much of any ramifications, even for Georgia. I mean, they're going to wind up in the 8-9 game no matter what happens, I think, in the NCAA tournament. But if you look at every other game, I feel like there's some meaning behind it, and probably none more so than Auburn's trip to Alabama. And then you've got the bubble teams like Missouri having to host Arkansas. You got A&M, kind of a tricky road game at LSU, and then you've got Texas having to host a pretty hot Oklahoma team. So, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest story is just those 4 games with the bubble teams to me are the most fascinating questions. And then, you kind of have that secondary stuff of Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Arkansas kind of battling out to maybe stay on the 5 line, get to the 4 potentially. And meanwhile, I think Alabama's kind of set. I don't really see much of movement at all for Alabama. I think they're going to wind up as a 4 kind of no matter what happens these next couple games for them. So.
Well, Blake, the game I wanted to ask you about, and you just mentioned it, is one of the ones you're keeping your eye on for tomorrow. It's Oklahoma and Texas. So Texas right now, a lot of people have them as an 11 seed. So for kind of both sides of this, Oklahoma, I know it feels like it would be a major long shot for them to work themselves into the conversation for an NCAA tournament bid. Is there any hope for the Sooners with a win tomorrow and then maybe a great run, let's say, to Sunday in Nashville? Is there any chance for them to get in? And then on the Texas side, right, if they lose to Oklahoma and maybe one and done in the SEC tournament, is there a chance that they could fall out of the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think both answers are yes, because I think with Texas, the issue they have is their non-conference strength of schedule is just pretty poor. And, their best win in the non-conference came against NC State, who's probably an 8-9 seed. And then their second best win, I think, was Southern. And so that's just, that's a bit of an issue for Texas. And now when you look at what they've done in SEC play, they do have the nice, wins at Alabama. They beat Vanderbilt, and they've got some nice wins. But, at a certain point, you've just got to win games. And I think that where they are right now, the non-conference portion has just hurt them quite a bit because the thing is, like, it wasn't just they didn't have a lot of great wins. They were playing a lot of bottom-tier teams. Like, we're talking bottom 30 teams in the country. I mean, they probably played 5 or 6 of them in non-conference play. So that, to me, is going to be the thing that could hold them back if they were to lose against Oklahoma and then lose elsewhere, because I think you've got teams like VCU and, TCU, Santa Clara. I think all those teams are going to get in. VCU's kind of been the debated one right now, but I think they're going to get in when I look at their resume. And that's why when you think about Oklahoma, we were looking at Lenardi's bracket today, and just if you want to say, all right, who does Oklahoma jump even to get into the picture? And we were going through Seton Hall's resume. They're the team he has on the next 4 out, the very last team out, so the 8th team out right now. I mean, that's one of the worst resumes I've seen for an NCAA tournament bubble team in a while. I mean, Seton Hall's resume is just atrocious. And so therefore, if Oklahoma keeps picking up nice wins here down the stretch, but they already have a few, I mean, I think they're going to jump a team like that and at least find themselves in the picture. So it's a very important game, no question about it. And I think you could have both teams kind of wondering what their NCAA tournament future holds coming out of it.
I'm just curious, Blake, your thoughts on Auburn. Is there a pathway without a win tomorrow night in Tuscaloosa for Auburn to make the tournament?
The only path at that point would be winning the SEC tournament. I
Okay.
don't see any scenario where they get in by losing tomorrow. I just don't. I don't think there's any shot, honestly. You would need a million things to go right. And the thing is, I think what a lot of people, when they look at bracketology, they think it's just sort of just, it's a straightforward thing. But what bracketologists can't do is predict who are going to steal bids in these conference tournaments. And it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So, like right now, if you're viewing Auburn as, let's say, one of the first couple teams out, those spots are going to wind up being taken by somebody that you're not even expecting right now. And so, in my opinion, if you're in that range, you're a little bit further out than you probably think. And so, I don't see it. I don't think there's any way a team like Auburn can enter into Selection Sunday with what would be 16 losses if they're not winning the SEC tournament and somehow be able to convince a committee, despite having a strong strength of schedule. How do you convince them that you're worthy of an NCAA tournament bid? And I know we don't do last 10 or anything like that anymore, but come on, like we know how this works. Like there's going to be some recency bias. And I know they look at the overall body of work, but you can only ride that Florida road win for so long. At some point, you got to win games, and they've just not done enough of that. And so I think they have to win tomorrow. I don't want to say they're a lock if they win tomorrow, because I wouldn't go that far, but it would give them a substantial boost if they were to win that game.
Blake, talk a little bit to our audience about how important tomorrow's game is for Missouri. Obviously, I mean, regular season finale against a ranked Arkansas team at home, but both for their NCAA tournament hopes because they're there in kind of that last four bye area with like the Texas and Texas A&Ms of the conference, but also what it could mean seeding wise for Nashville because I saw a crazy scenario the other day where a win tomorrow for Missouri and they could be as high as a 3 seed in Nashville, but a loss and some other games going particular ways, and they could find themselves not getting a single bye at all in Nashville.
Yeah, Missouri's got some pretty weird tiebreaker scenarios, and they've kind of been put in a position where them and Kentucky, I feel like, can move around quite a bit based on what happens tomorrow. And I think for them, they're kind of on the same front as Texas, whereas they've got some good, and of course that includes a win against Florida, which is holding some weight, I think, for them. They've won at Kentucky. They have nice wins at Texas A&M. They've beaten Vanderbilt. They've beaten Tennessee. And that's the thing. You look at all those and say, how is that not a tournament team? Well, it's very simple. They have road losses at Ole Miss. They've lost at LSU. They've gotten beat at home by Texas by 17. They just lost to Oklahoma by 16. And they have a even weaker non-conference strength of schedule than Texas does. So I think from that perspective, they really need to win this game against Arkansas because I think if they win against Arkansas, they're a lock to get in. If they lose this game, I think you're starting to slip back a little bit. Now, the important part, and I hate that we have to do this, but it's true. Honestly, it's not just if you lose, it's how you lose. If Missouri loses by 5, that's great. But if they lose by 15, that's not great. And that's where, again, the analytics start to come into play and the net and all this other stuff. So they really need to win, obviously, if they want to feel like they're a lock to get in. But if they don't and they find themselves in a situation where they lose in the first round of the SEC tournament, I think at that point, you're probably looking at Dayton as the best case scenario for Missouri because I just think the non-conference is really going to be kind of hammered home by the committee. And I think they're the one that's going to lose the most in that conversation.
Blake Lovell joins us every Friday here on the program from Southeastern 16. You can always check them out on YouTube. They are worth the subscription because they do a great job covering the Southeastern Conference when it comes to basketball and football there on YouTube. Outside of Alabama and Auburn, it seems like the team that we have talked to you the most about this year has been Kentucky. It's 1 week they're up. The next week, they're ready to fire Mark Pope. I'm asking you about Kentucky because Joe Lunardi's currently got them as a 6 seed. Do you think they're solid there? Are they susceptible, even with, let's say, they take the loss to Florida tomorrow and then they get in the SEC tournament and they lose their first round game? Are they still a 6, or do you think there's some work to be done that they can improve themselves, or are they just pretty much a 6 and that's just what they're going to have to live with next week?
I think Kentucky is going to have a decent enough chance to drop to a 7, and Kentucky fans aren't going to want to hear that, but that's what I believe. Because if you kind of look at it, you just got to hope you don't get steamrolled by Florida,
Right.
because I know it's one thing to say, hey, everybody else is kind of in that spot, but at the same time, you can't let that happen when I think they're just sort of teetering right there on that 6 line right now. And so if you let that happen, then to me, you're looking at the crop of teams from like St. Mary's. I think Louisville would still have a better resume right now. Wisconsin's done a lot of good for themselves. And the thing is, like, I don't really see any of those teams that are in the 5, high 6 range doing anything that's going to hurt them here over the next couple games. That's going to really substantially drop their seed. And so, from that perspective, Kentucky to me is the team that, yes, obviously may have the most to gain because they're playing Florida, but at the same time, if it doesn't go well, then I think that's where you're looking at, okay, how well does St. Mary's do in the West Coast tournament? Because they're going to have an opportunity, to maybe play Gonzaga again, maybe play Santa Clara, and those are going to be considered decent enough wins, I would say, for St. Mary. So there's potentially you get jumped there. And then you've kind of got that group of teams, whether it's like a BYU, Villanova. As you can tell, I just, when I said Seton Hall earlier, the Big East to me is just a complete mess. And that's why I think if you look at it on the other side, like, should Florida have a chance to be the last number 1 seed ahead of UConn? Absolutely. I know they had the head-to-head back in early December. But if you're telling me that you think Florida's the same team they were in early December when they played UConn, you haven't been watching them play. And so I think Florida has a considerably better resume overall if they were to win this game against Kentucky and then at worst get to the SEC tournament final, and maybe even the semifinal. It may not even matter. I think Florida has a better resume. So it's a big game for both teams, but I do still think Kentucky could slide here a bit.
Blake, if we're looking in March Madness, and I know until the bracket comes out, we're playing a guessing game here, but have you kind of removed the top team, basically the teams that are in the top 25 right now? Your Alabamas, your Floridas, obviously, Arkansas, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. What's a team you look at and go, all right, if they get a good break in the bracket, you could see them being a team that maybe makes a Sweet 16 or potentially even an Elite 8 run if the bracket kind of falls their way?
Well, for Georgia, you'd love it if they could find a way to get out of the 8-9 game. But like I said earlier, I think the issue is they're going to find their way there. And if they could get to a 7, I don't even think there's any chance they're going to drop to a 10 at this point. So they're kind of stuck. And that's where, look, you need to win tomorrow at Mississippi State, and then you probably need to make a run in the SEC tournament. If you could get to a 7, like, I think Georgia, and I'm not just saying this because of what they did against Alabama. I mean, they have helped themselves more than anyone over the past 2.5 weeks, whether it's the win at Kentucky, what they did against Texas, now what they did against Alabama. They're playing really well right now. Even the loss at Vanderbilt, they didn't play bad at all. And so I think Georgia's the kind of team that just because they have the guard play and they're shooting it a lot better. I mean, that's the thing too. I remember watching Georgia earlier in the season, and I'm texting somebody. I'm like, this may be the worst 3-point shooting team I've ever seen in the SEC. They went 2 of 26 against Florida A&M from 3. I think there was one game, that may have been that game or another one. I want to say it was another game where they started like 0 of 18 or whatever it was from 3. And I'm just like, this team can't shoot. But you look at the last 5 games, they've hit 10 or more threes in the last 5 games and shot 40% or better. So, is that sustainable? I don't know. But if it is, and I find Georgia in a 7-10 against one of these 2 seeds that maybe, has a few flaws you could poke at, then I'd put Georgia on that list right now. This is the team I swung and missed on the most this offseason. I just did not necessarily see how this was all going to come together, but it has. And I think from that standpoint, even a Georgia versus a UConn, I wouldn't completely discount the idea in a 1-8 type scenario that Georgia could pull off an upset there, but you'd much rather, I think, be in that 7th spot right now.
And listen, I agree 100% on the Big East, because every time you think, okay, all right, St. John's, they're the team, and then they come up and they have one of those games. UConn does not look like the UConn. Obviously, their roster is stacked, and they get into the tournament, they're going to be dangerous. But the rest of that league, Creighton has been a no-show. They finally showed up the other night against Butler, but Butler was a 500 team. And obviously Providence and all these other schools that you just thought, and you mentioned Seton Hall, all these teams, especially in the Big East. I mean, I guess right now, Lenardi's got 3 maybe from the Big East making the tournament right now. So, Okay, final question for me, and I'm gonna kind of pose this in a little bit of a different way than Conrad just asked you. In regards to the SEC and getting as deep as possible, we can all agree that Florida is the team from this conference. I mean, unless they just have a horrible type evening and it just goes hell in a handbasket pretty quick for them, that could be the team that could cut the nets down. Give me two other teams that you feel potentially, if the bracket looks okay, that they can go pretty far in March. And who knows, they could get to the Elite Eight or maybe even get to a Final Four. Two other teams besides Florida.
Yeah, and I think this is like sort of a process of elimination thing. And it's like I almost feel confident in eliminating everybody else except these two teams. And it's probably not a surprise, but it would be Arkansas and Alabama. I don't have the trust
And
factor in
is that
Tennessee
because the guard
offensively.
play and because they're outside
It's
shooting? Would that be it?
it's the guard play, and I think you've seen both of these teams at times step up defensively when they have to. And I'm not saying it's going to happen every game, and that's where again it's all about matchups. But does Arkansas want to see a team that just completely attacks them in the paint every single possession, and faces a very good rebounding team, elite rebounding team? Probably not. But they just beat a team like that in Texas that kind of tries to do that, and so like you've seen them do it before. And so I think it's kind of the same with Alabama. Like at this point, I don't care if it sounds like an old kind of argument, but I'm like, how can I remove what I've seen with Alabama over the years, especially the year they made the Final Four, where all we were told at the time was that there's no way a team like this defensively that, doesn't force a lot of turnovers, can give up some offensive rebounds and all this other stuff. There's no way a team like that can make a Final Four. And well, I mean, they just came out and outscored everybody. And oh, by the way, they also played better defense because they just realized, hey, this is how we're going to have to get there. Is we're going to have to play some better defense. So I think both teams have it in them, and it's just a matter of can you stop them offensively. And most times, you can't really stop these two offensively. And so I think they have both kind of have all the intangibles you need. But in the same instance, if you're Arkansas and you're in the 5-12 game against the South Florida, you're not going to love that because you're seeing a team that can, again, exploit some of those things. And so it really is going to come down to the matchups. But I think by process of elimination, it has to be those two teams because I just don't have the trust factor in Tennessee, Vanderbilt, or kind of anyone in that range right now.
All right, one more for you before we let you go, Blake. If I told you right now, next week in Nashville, you can have Florida or you can have the Field, which one are you taking in Nashville?
I would take Florida. That's just how good they've been. Even if they lost tomorrow, I probably wouldn't change my answer. Like, I just think that this is a team that's on a mission, and I almost feel like they kind of have a chip on their shoulder, and that's a scary thing for a team that won a national championship last year. But there's something that has just kind of set them off, whether it was the Auburn game or whatever, that has kind of turned this into a completely different team. And that's why, again, to me, I think it's Florida, and I don't know that I could pick anyone else just based on the way they're playing right now.
That is Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16. Hopefully we can catch up with you next week as the tournament will be in Nashville. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Blake.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you so much. He joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services. We roll on this Friday. We are wide open the rest of the way. So your calls are welcome at 1-800-239-WJOX. The text line is 205-834-9450. We'll get to those texts next on the program. 1222 here on Jocks on this Friday, 1-800-239-WJOX. Let's go right to the phones, and our good friend Cigar Cowboy joins us here on the program. What's going on, Cowboy?
I would like to clarify an improperly read text from 2 days ago.
Okay.
Landrum said, paraphrasing, Pat, you're a friend and I love you and you need to get to Nicaragua. That is not what I said. Now, this needs a little setup.
Okay.
You guys were discussing WBC and exhibition games.
Right.
And somebody said that Nicaragua was playing the Cardinals.
Correct.
And so what I said, and I quote, was, Pat, you're a friend and I love you, but I have to go Nicaragua.
Gotcha. Landrum misspoke.
So fake news from Landrum. Okay.
Yes.
Well, and just as an update, Nicaragua 2, San Luis 1.
Oh.
So I tracked it.
Yeah, that wasn't a good afternoon, but I'm getting used to the losing, Cowboy. So.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just had to get that on the record.
Well, listen, first off, it's great to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. And always appreciate you listening and texting in or calling.
And December 14th, I did have a mild heart attack.
I hope you're doing well now.
Well, I'm still breathing and talking.
That's a win.
That's a good sign, yeah.
That is a win.
And enjoying good cigars. And while I was in the hospital, do you smoke? I said cigars and pipes only. And they kind of, stare at you.
Right.
And then I said, and we do not inhale. So later I got my medical records and it said, drink never, smoke never. And in the comments it said, cigars and pipes socially. But they looked at the x-rays and they were like, golly. So they know.
Well, first off, I'm glad to hear that you are recovering, and always great to hear from you, and hopefully we get to see you soon.
You got it. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Cigar
Cowboy.
Cowboy. And man, just a great story. Glad to hear that he's doing okay after his heart attack.
Absolutely. Well, I was worried when he said he had to clarify that he was going to say that you're not his friend and he doesn't care about you. That was my concern at first.
Cigar Cowboy was up here around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, for the food drive.
Yeah, he sure did. He came up here, but he has driven his vehicle to Nicaragua.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
From Birmingham.
That's what you're doing this weekend, right?
I've got some other plans this weekend. No, that's not on the agenda.
Maybe next weekend.
I have to clear more than just
I
a
think you
weekend.
should.
Nah.
More than just a weekend.
No, you can
No,
do that. You could do that in like 2 days.
Yeah.
No, a little busy. I have UAB basketball Sunday. Sorry. Then I have the American Conference tournament.
And then you
next
got
week.
and then you got to watch the SEC tournament, and then we got
Yeah,
March
just-
Madness. So
it's-
we'll push it to May.
Yeah, and then I got opening day. It's just I
Yeah,
got a
that's
lot,
in like 3 weeks.
got a lot going on. Won't be able to make it.
I had forgotten this until the other day.
Not to mention the fact that I don't have my star ID yet, so I can't get my passport.
don't?
I don't. Mm-mm.
I don't either. Wait, do you have a?
You both don't?
Well, I have a passport that's recently been renewed in the last couple of years, so I should be good there,
I've
right?
had mine for like 6 years.
I don't need one if I have a passport, right?
I don't think so.
Isn't that how that works? I don't know. Paige went and got hers, and she said it was a nightmare, just in terms of how long she had to wait and things of that nature.
Yeah, Landrum had to get a before they went on one of their trips. He had to
Oh, he had to drive
to
to
Montgomery. I
Yeah,
think.
because he said because it was faster to drive to Montgomery, do it there, than it was to go locally and wait 4 hours.
Yeah.
In line for it.
So later this afternoon at 3 o'clock at the White House, it's still on, according to the media, that President Donald Trump is convening a presidential roundtable of more than 36 dignitaries and sports celebrities to further explore solutions for the industry's ills in college sports. Invitees include Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, Tiger Woods. Other invites are expected to attend: Greg Sankey from the SEC, Tony Petitti from the Big Ten, Brett Yormark from the Big 12, Jim Phillips from the ACC. We'll see this afternoon at 3 o'clock if this meeting goes through. We're also going to be watching Miami of Ohio tonight, the little back and forth between the Miami of Ohio AD and Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl, very critical of Miami going undefeated, maybe saying that, well, unless they win their conference tournament, they shouldn't be in the NCAA tournament. Miami enters tonight's game against Ohio on the road at Athens. They're 30-0 on the season. They're looking to become the first team since 2021 when Gonzaga went 26-0 in the regular season. They're trying to become the first team to do that, and it'll be the seventh team overall in the history of college basketball to do that. Kentucky, the last SEC team to do it back in 2015.
Oh, they got so close that year.
31-0 for the Wildcats back in 2015.
And they went undefeated until the national championship game, and then they lost there. But I think Miami, Ohio will be okay tonight unless Ohio is able to get an injunction for Mark Sears to come back for a game. Otherwise, I think Miami, Ohio will be fine.
Yeah, Ohio ranks 346th in three-point shooting. So that would be your first sign if you're watching the game and Ohio comes out and hits like their first 2 or 3 3-pointers.
You're like, oh, no.
You're like,
Might be that night.
All right, might need to take a look at that live betting line because this might be a really tight contest between Miami of Ohio and the Bobcats.
Do you have any shekels on that one?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I just know, I figured you'd be staying up late tonight, and because you've got so many options.
Yeah, no, I will be up late tonight. Not to mention the fact that my body has already converted to this time change that's going to happen tomorrow night. Don't forget about that.
Spring forward.
So yeah, I guess my body was excited the last 2 mornings because I've had World Baseball Classic to watch at 4:00 in the morning. So I have been getting up that early.
So you and Dave both up at 4 a.m.
So me and Jamie Bailey. Because Jamie always texts us and tweets at us and appreciate that greatly.
Oh, every morning.
Every morning.
I look forward to it every day.
He will tweet at us and wish us a good morning. And I tweeted back at him because I was sitting there watching the World Baseball Classic from Tokyo.
Yeah, it makes me feel bad on some mornings because I got to get up here and do morning jocks. And some days I'll wake up and he's already tweeted at me, good morning. I'm like, man, he's ahead of me and I got to go do a radio show.
Well, you're a slacker. We all know that.
That's right.
I will say I do look forward to seeing those every day.
Yeah, it's very thoughtful.
Start my day off good.
No question.
That's right.
When we come back on Three Man Front, we'll open up the text line 205-834-9450. It is 12:35. Welcome back into the program. 1-800-239-WJOX. Pat, Conrad, Molly, Lange will be back with us on Mondays calling some high school basketball championship games this afternoon. I think he's got 2 on the docket. You can watch those locally and across the state of Alabama on WAPT television, the public broadcast station across the state. Let's get to your text line, which is 205-834-9450. Many of you have chimed in on a myriad of topics here on this Friday.
Absolutely. Let's see. This text comes in from Howie. It says, I hope everyone stays safe this weekend with the bad weather. Yeah, make sure you're staying weather aware over the weekend here around the state of Alabama. But he also adds, definitely watching baseball tonight and the Alabama-Auburn game tomorrow, even though I'll be working a 12-hour shift. Looking forward to a great pool party later in the summer.
Yeah, so we determined yesterday 20 invites, right? That's what we're looking at?
I think that was the number that Don threw out there, yeah.
Yeah. Don said that he will provide the food. And so now you've just got to, will you go over the list with your wife? Like, how will you determine the 20?
I've got to clear it with my wife first because she's been busy this weekend at, doing important things like saving lives at work. So maybe this weekend we'll sit down and try to put together a guest list because at the end of the day, it is her house as well, and she's got to approve of, the hospitality and all that stuff. And
can I just make a recommendation for you?
Yeah. What you got?
Of the 20 invites, I would suggest doing some form of lottery because you're going to make a lot of people mad.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. If we do the selection process, that would be difficult. I mean, we already had somebody say they would donate $500 to charity for an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's where you get into, I don't want to take bribes. Even if it's for a good cause, because then I don't want other people to feel like, well, then I have to pony up money to get, that's not the way that we want to do things. But we do appreciate how generous many of our listeners are. Rolling on, this text rolls in. A Kentucky fan going down memory lane with the undefeated season there. Says, yeah, they lost to Wisconsin in the semifinals. I forgot it was the Final Four, not the national championship. But he says, oh, my God, I'm going to throw up again. Remembering that 2014-2015 Kentucky team that was, up until that point, they were probably the best college basketball team I had seen in my lifetime, or at least one of the 2 or 3 best, and not quite able to get the job done, unfortunately. Let's see. Someone else letting us know, yeah, if you have a passport, you don't need the star ID. And Dave, he texted us in and let us know that apparently, I did not know this, but if you don't have a star ID or a valid passport, you can still fly. You just have to pay apparently a $49 charge for an extra screening. So obviously you're better off just going ahead and getting the ID. But that is, I guess, an option that's out there if you have to travel at short notice or something like that. Okay, see, here we go, Pat. This would take more than 2 days. Somebody sent in their Maps app on their phone. If you were to drive from Birmingham, Alabama to Nicaragua, take a guess how many hours it would take.
Let's see.
It's a lot.
I am going to say 47 hours.
47. Molly, do you have a guess? From Birmingham to Nicaragua in a car.
You said 47?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess like 50.
47 in 1 minute.
I'll go 56 hours.
It's 56
Are you
hours.
serious?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I've driven a lot in my
57.
life,
Yeah,
clearly,
you've
so.
obviously made the trek before. That's whew.
I've never been to Nicaragua, but I have driven a lot.
It's 2,800 miles.
You need an oil change.
I was about to say you need an oil change when you got back from the drive. Wow.
That reminds me, I had a friend in college. His first job, like after we graduated from Nebraska, was with a small newspaper somewhere in Alaska. And so he had to drive from his hometown in Nebraska all the way to like central Alaska or something. And he had to get an oil change after that drive.
To Alaska?
To Alaska. Mm-hmm.
Whew. Yeah, that's
because he needed his car.
That's a trek. Yeah, no, I mean that's a trek, no doubt about it. Collins, see, this is just a great text from Collins. He just texted in. It's a picture of a bunch of the Japanese fans at the WBC, and they're dressed up in full regalia. They have the full uniforms on. Like you could mistake them for players on the team. And he says, how can you not be romantic about baseball? I don't know. I don't know how you couldn't be. It's a beautiful game.
Even when Chinese Taipei was losing 13-0 this morning to Japan, their fans was hanging on every pitch.
Well, because they want to watch Ohtani do amazing things all the time.
No, I'm talking about Chinese Taipei.
Oh, you're talking about the Chinese
loser.
Taipei.
They were losing 13-0.
Oh, well, that's admirable then.
Yeah.
That Grand Slam was pretty nice this morning. Let's see. Corey says about the pool party, he says, I'll bring beer and napkins. Oh, that would be useful. He says, it's also better to ask for forgiveness than permission, Conrad. Just go ahead and do the invites. I love my wife. I don't know if I'd be able to come back from that one. Let's see. This text rolls in. It says, a good Pat Ponders question for all of you. What's the furthest that you've ever driven in a car or driven your vehicle? I think mine's probably when I lived in Arlington, Virginia for a few years when I was younger, and we would drive back here for holidays. That was 14 hours, if I remember correctly. Something like that.
I've got a lot of these. Well, every time we drove to Nebraska from Huntsville, it was about 15 hours, and that includes stops.
Have y'all driven to Michigan?
Oh, yeah.
Is that even further?
That's only 10.
That's only,
That's not
I
as
guess
bad.
it, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But during COVID, like during that summer 2020, me and my parents, we were sick of being cooped up in the house. And so we packed our car and just headed west. And we stopped in, I think, Dallas, OKC. We went through Albuquerque and Roswell, up through Colorado, through like Denver, Colorado Springs, like did all the national parks, like went through the Rockies, went all the way up to Glacier National Park in Montana, which is the northwest corner of the state, like kind of into Canada, and then drove across through, like we went through Wyoming, we went through both of the Dakotas, actually went down through Nebraska, and then came back home. We were gone for about 3 weeks. So if you tally all of that up, I think we went through Vegas that trip as well.
That's probably a trip to Nicaragua based on how many miles.
My family, I would compare us to the Griswolds in the fact that we'll just pack a car, and if we're driving, like, yes, we have a plan, but we're the type of people that like, on this
that looks
road,
interesting.
That
Let's
looks
go.
interesting.
Yeah.
We'll just stop there. Like, at this exit, there's the world's largest ball of twine, like stuff like that. So.
What about you?
Seen a lot of cool things.
San Antonio to Kansas City. That's about an 816-mile drive.
Whew.
That's about 12-hour drive from San Antonio to Kansas City.
That's a that's a haul right there. Posey has an idea for Alabama basketball tomorrow and how they could maybe set Auburn back a little bit. He says, would it hurt Auburn seating wise if Alabama sat all their starters tomorrow and just let Auburn win? I don't think it works like that. I see the angle there, but I don't know if I think they might call that out.
Okay, just to reference that trip to Glacier, if you were to go from here, the station, to Glacier, the visitor center, it is a 32-hour drive.
Ooh.
And we went like due west and then up.
Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, we were gone for a long time.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun.
That's a lot.
I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Let's see. This text says, somebody said that if Alabama makes it to Sunday in the SEC tournament, they could move up to a 3 seed. The NCAA selection committee's work is done by Friday of that week. The weekend games are not considered. They mean nothing for seeding or even getting in the tourney. And that's, for the most part, yes, that is true. Obviously, if you win, then you get the automatic bid, and that's really the only way that can affect you. Some people chiming in with their support of Alabama women's basketball and their upset of the Tennessee Volunteers yesterday.
Yep, they got another UT tonight. They play Texas, the 3 seed.
Yep, that was a big one. And then some of you chiming in with the longest trips that you've made. This one, Ken in Minnesota says, I drove from Atlanta to California and back, took 5.5 days.
Wow.
That's a long one.
That's a haul.
Let's see. John says, I drove from Bozeman to Bainbridge, Georgia, 33-hour trip. That's a really long one. Let's see. Someone says Birmingham to Key West is a good haul. Yeah, no doubt about it. And Cigar Cowboy says, how about y'all invite me to Social Taco, and I'd love to sit down and talk about the journey that he took and all that. That would be great. I think we would love to see Cigar Cowboy at Social Taco with many of our other great listeners every every Tuesday. And Andrew chimes in. He says, Conrad, if you were invited to the White House event today with Donald Trump, would you even go since you hate America? I will say this. If I am ever invited to the White House for any sort of meeting of the minds, which they would never care about what I have to say, they'd probably be horrified. If I'm ever invited to the White House for anything, I think like many people, I would absolutely accept that because it is a great honor. And I mean, come on, look at my face today. I'm obviously American, at least for today. Who knows about tomorrow?
Yeah. We'll continue with your text messages. Next hour, we'll do some Pat Ponders. Damian will join us. All that straight ahead on Jocks. $12.49 here on Jocks, 1-800-239-WJOX. That is the phone number. The text line is open as well, 205-834-9450. If you've got some basketball thoughts, World Baseball Classic, the United States plays tonight against Brazil. That is a 7 o'clock first pitch. We've got Bama, Auburn tomorrow night, 7:30 right here on Jocks as the IBOB of basketball wraps up the college basketball regular season for the SEC.
Yeah, crazy how fast it's gone by. But should be a great slate of games tomorrow. You got 8 SEC games and, of course, a litany of other games across the country. So going to be a fun weekend there. But we invite more of your text on the Jocks text line, 205-834-9450. And the texter that texted in asking the Pat Ponders question about what's the furthest you've ever driven in your life, that has kind of struck fire here on the text line. A lot of you chiming in with your travel stories and the longest distances that you've ever driven. Like this one. So this texter actually had 2 texts. He was talking about the Ryan Williams thing from earlier. He says, every coach I ever played for would never allow anyone to wear number 1. They all said it makes you look self-centered. Like you're number 1. I've always 0 or 00. I've heard some people say that's something that they're not going to allow. When I was in high school, and I was playing baseball, I remember I wanted to wear number 13 because A-Rod's my favorite player, and we were not allowed to wear 13 because it was an unlucky number, so I had to be number 6 because that was the year LeBron changed his number to 6. I'm not kidding. That's why I did that. This text, he also added in, my brother drove from Steamboat to Troy, and he only stopped for gas. Whew.
That's awesome.
That's a long one. Big Court says, Jackson Hole to T-Town, 32 hours.
Done that one. That's a long one.
That would be a long one. That'd be worth it, though. You're going to Jackson Hole. Let's see. Okay, well, this is, Molly was talking about you had a friend that drove to Alaska and back. This texter says, the Army transferred me from Birmingham to Fort Wainwright in Anchorage, had to drive 4,200 miles in a U-Haul truck.
Oh, see, I bet that drive was awesome. The sights that you would see.
Oh, it would be great. But
brutal.
I was about to say, I would rather not be in a U-Haul truck for a drive that's 4,200 miles. But appreciate your service there and your dedication, because that's a trip you had to take right there. Let's see. Fat Joe says, Conrad, if I don't get an invite to the pool party, I'm not going to be mad at you. I totally understand. But is your pool above ground or in-ground pool? And he says, oh, he has an above-ground pool, and it's already warmed up water where he could get in it. Mine is, it's an above-ground pool, but it's built into the deck. So, I mean, it's still technically an above-ground pool, but it's got the deck kind of surrounding it there. But maybe I'll test the water. Well, it's going to rain this weekend, so maybe next weekend. Let's see. Fat Joe, he also adds, I drove from Aspen to Birmingham, 22 hours. Oh, man. He said he did it in one drive. Didn't take a nap, no stops for rest or anything. He stopped for gas, and that was it. That's 22 straight hours driving. It's
a long time.
I could not do that one. I could not do that. Let's see. This one says, I've driven from Calcium, New York to Birmingham. Took about 18 hours. That's said in Beham. Is that upstate? I've never heard of Calcium, New York. I'm assuming that's upstate. Let's see. Wow, this one is a little different. It says, not in a car, but on a Navy boat. Went from San Diego to the Persian Gulf. Took 3 weeks.
Oh, Mom.
That's a trip right there. Okay. Alan chimes in. He says, the Birmingham Bulls actually have multiple Canadian players, and they drive from Canada down here for the hockey season.
Wow.
That is commitment right there. Let's see. Faye has chimed in with the longest drive she's ever taken.
Can't wait to hear this.
The longest I drove was back before I moved to Childersburg. I was living up in Moulton, and I went to go visit a now ex-boyfriend who lived in DeKalb, Illinois.
Interesting.
That's a long-distance love right there, Faye.
She said it was her ex-husband or ex-friend?
Boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend, ex-lover, same thing, right? Let's see. Dr. Phil says, I drove from Birmingham to Detroit and then from Detroit to San Diego. Oh.
That's a haul.
That is a haul.
That's a crazy one.
Beham to Detroit, not bad. My family would do that a lot.
Yeah, but then to go to San Diego and then I'm assuming back to Birmingham from there, that's a lot. BB chimes in. Says, when my husband and I go to our Wyoming cabin, it's 1,400 miles. Yeah, that's a journey right there, especially if you're doing it somewhat frequently to go visit. Yeah, someone has sent in I don't know this is sending this in, but it's fantastic. Somebody got an AI. They took a screenshot of Molly painting my face and they put it in AI, and it's quite funny. So they've sent that in a couple times now. So we've seen it. It's very funny. I don't know how you did that so quickly, but kudos to you for doing that. But continue to. Someone just said, Connor, I didn't know you used to live in Illinois. Going back to the Faye thing about going to DeKalb. That's good. That's good, Posey. All right. More of your text, though, 205-834-9450.
We will continue on. One more hour to go for the week. We'd love to hear from you. 1-800-239-WJOX, 205-834-9450 on the three-man front text line. Many, many more things to get into. One more hour to go of the week. This is Three Man Front.